I'd always like to make sure we're on.
Yeah, man.
Isaac Martinez, man. Thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So I was just talking with you about how I did not realize that you were in the fight scene.
Yes, sir.
Now you actually have what do you call it? Not paparazzi credentials, but what do they call it again?
Media credentials.
Media credentials.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Man.
Were you actually at the when Masvidal was mouthing off to the guys in LA? Were you actually there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I recorded that video, the one I posted.
Is that right? That's sick, dude. That's a great video, man.
Yeah. So it was crazy. So long story short, as far as that goes, I've been doing like videography and photography for quite a while. I started doing it in 2018.
Okay.
And then 2022, I started doing combat sports. So from 2022 till now, I've been doing combat sports. And this was my first boxing, like any type of coverage. Never done boxing. It was always like MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing. So, of course, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, you know, UFC vets. It's like, bro, I want to see them. I want to see them in person, you know?
Right, yeah.
So me and one of my guys, we go to the press conference. Luckily, Ashley Evans Smith, who's an ex-UFC fighter, she happened to be there. And we don't know each other super well, but she's been to some local shows around here. We got to meet before, and I took some photos of her while she was like covering the event. So she knows of me. So I saw her, and she was there covering for the Mayweather channel.
Oh, okay.
And I think they wanted somebody who like had some MMA experience, talk about like, you know, the guys. Anyway, so she saw me, and I was like, Ashley, I'm trying to get credentials to the press conference. I talked to the guy who's giving out the credentials. He said if anybody could vouch for me, he'll give me credentials. And I was like, can you vouch for me? And she goes, I got you.
This is our first time meeting her?
Well, we've met before.
Oh, okay.
But we don't really talk like that. I only see her at the shows.
Right, yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
So every time we see each other, I was like, hey, what's up? And she's just like, hey, what's up?
Oh, that's cool.
So this was like, I asked her for a favor, and long story short, she did it, and then they ended up giving me the credentials. So I was able to be literally in the front row watching the press conference, and I took photos and videos and stuff.
Did that video that you posted of Masvidal, did that go viral?
It didn't go viral per se. Like, it didn't get like 100,000 views, but it got thousands of views. Like, I think the last time I checked, it was close to like 8,000 views.
Oh, that's great, man.
Which, I mean, anything, because me and some guys that are in the space, we just started a channel this year, similar to like how you started this year. So we just been slowly building everything up.
Well, it looks like you guys are moving pretty good. How many guys do you have on there? Who's the team that you're working with?
All right, man. So it's me. I go by Issac Lawrence. I got my guy Hike. He goes by his photography. He's a photographer. We have Brian, Touchdown Films, a videographer guy. We have Michael Hernandez, MLH Media. We have Adam Araby, and then we have Gamal. So that's 6 people.
Ooh, that's quite a team you built there.
Yeah, man. And honestly, I've been blessed. So throughout my time working in the combat sports space, I've been able to just meet different people, and I saw these guys that they were hungry. They were already kind of grinding on their own by themselves.
Oh, so you guys were all doing your own thing.
Correct.
And you guys gravitated towards each other.
Correct. We would see each other at shows, things like that. And last year, me and basically all the guys, we got kind of close, like individually. And me and Hike, we're the old men of the group. So I just turned 32 yesterday.
Okay.
And
yesterday.
Yes,
oh,
sir.
that's right. I saw it on your Insta. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you, man.
That's it.
And then my guy Hike, he's 38, I believe. So we're the only ones in our 30s. Michael, 21 years old. Gamal, 22 years old. Adam, 24. They're all either 25 or under.
But hungry.
Oh,
that's
man.
great, man. Yeah.
So me and Hike, being a little bit of the older, the uncles, so to speak, we see all their energy, and we're just like, man, we have the experience, we have the resources. Let's form kind of this little group, get all these young guys to kind of concentrate that energy, and that's what we did. We created a Fight Fan Culture, and we released our first video. It was like late January, and we used our resources to kind of reach out to amateur fighters and we're slowly working our way to just working with pros exclusively. But yeah, man, it's been a ride.
Dude, that's great. So what I've been doing is just like trying to reach out to whoever, fighters and stuff like that. Did you guys have to do that in the beginning, like reach out to unknown fighters and try to get them on your show? And what's your experience actually having interviews with fighters and things like that?
So I'll give you like a quick kind of bio of how I got into it. So like I said, I started doing photography and video in 2018. Well, I graduated high school 2010. When I was in high school, I played sports pretty much my whole life since I was 4. But when I was in high school, I started doing choir. I was always interested in music. Because of choir, I ended up meeting different musicians and singers and this and that. Well, I really wanted to learn how to make music. So I bought some equipment and I started producing, making beats and recording different people and stuff like that. So when I graduated high school, I was working like regular jobs, Walmart, McDonald's, here and there, things that you do like when you first graduate high school, going to community college. But what I was doing behind the scenes was I was creating music.
Okay.
So from 2010 to 2018, it was all the way until 2020, but 2018, I just worked doing music. So how I even got started with the camera is one of the guys who I was working with exclusively, he was like, man, I need somebody to do photography and videos, and we have all these different people that are willing to do it, but there's nobody consistent. So I was like, okay, let me just buy a camera and let me just figure it out, Yeah. So I did, bought a cheap little camera, and I started shooting photos and music videos and things like that, and it was fun.
Like doing the video and editing, or they did all that?
No, I did everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I literally just figured it out. I would go on YouTube, go to different forums, whatever I could get my hands on to like learn editing and all that stuff. I'd figure it out, and that's kind of how my whole life has been like that. I just kind of figured it out.
Do you get snagged a lot of trouble at first? In my experience trying to figure out this whole thing, oh man, there were days where I'd just be yelling at the walls, like I couldn't get software to work.
Dude, and then I'm sure you've gone through this phase as well. You put in all this time and energy to create this piece of content, whatever it is, and only you know how much amount of time you did, and you're like thinking it's the best thing ever, and then you look at something else and you realize you're like, wait, this is not as good as I thought it was.
Right. Well, I try not to worry about that too much, and I've learned after a while not to beat myself up about all the things I could have did, would have, should have, could have. And because otherwise I just get stressed out and I get unmotivated. So I just like, you know what? I'm going to put this out there. It's probably not the best work I could have did, but it's what I did. And I'm just going to share it with the world and just let it fly, and just work on the next project.
But that's called wisdom. See, that's what you have.
That's one word I never associate with myself, but go on.
Yeah, no, that's wisdom because you're 100% right. You have to do that. Me at 32 years old, I have a little bit of wisdom. So I do the same thing now. But back 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when I'm in my early 20s, I'm trying to compete with the shiny things. And so, yeah, there was a lot of growth, a lot of growing pains in the beginning. So 2018, I finally kind of start shooting photos and videos and stuff. And what ended up happening is music became like a job, and I fell out of love with it. So towards the end of the 2010s, I kind of slowly stopped doing music as much as I was. And
had you, once that started happening, had you already dabbled a little bit with filming fights and stuff? Or?
No, so that didn't come till 2022. Oh. So pandemic hits 2020.
Yeah.
So at this point, all my eggs are in this basket of like photography, video, and stuff like that. And I was going through like somewhat of an identity crisis because I was like, man, like my identity is a photographer, is a videographer, and I'm at home and I can't work with people. And my niche was portraits and music videos and things like that where people are involved. So I went through like a little depression for a little while, trying to like figure out like what I do is not my identity. Who I am is my identity. So I had to go through that whole situation. Finally, 2021 comes out, and I'm like starting to kind of get my feet wet again. We're able to work again with people, the whole mask mandate and all this stuff, but we're able to go outside.
Well, what was happening with this depression? Like, you just kind of alienated yourself? Well, we were in the pandemic, but I mean, like, how did you guys respond to that whole thing?
I think for me, I was so used to go, 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 grind, 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 grind. I'm doing this. I'm doing that show. I'm having this photo shoot. I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
You're starting to see some progress too, I'm sure. Or,
Yes.
You know, that must have hit hard.
Exactly. And then now I have to sit still. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, now I have to think. Now I have to sit still.
Right.
Now I have to evaluate my situation in my life. And now I don't have the freedoms that I'm used to. It was tough.
Yeah, for me, it was tough. Obviously, I'm sure it was tough on everybody. But I was like accustomed to being home, so it's like it was tough, like raising a kid. You know, having my daughter with a little classroom and stuff. So I had to stay home. You know, but I worked from home a lot already, so it was just like, another day at the office for me.
Yeah.
So I guess I didn't really appreciate how hard of a time a lot of people were having. So I'm sure that must have been tough having to do that. So how did you pull yourself out of that?
I think, I was in a relationship at the time, and my relationship, we were both kind of strained through the pandemic, amongst other things. So I had to just release the past and accept my situation and then do something about it. So at the time, I like gained all this weight. Not only was I not able to do creative stuff, but I was going to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week minimum. So, you know, I was in pretty good shape. And then all of a sudden I can't go to the gym and I'm not creative and all this stuff. So I literally had to just remove myself from my environment. Me and that girl, we ended up it didn't work out. So we moved on from each other. Eventually when the gyms opened up, I just got back into the gym. So I started with things that I could control, which was my physical body. So I wanted to start there, and I understood that I'm very momentum based. So if I can just build a little bit of momentum, I'll be able to just grow it.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes it's like the stepping stone. If I get like right now I'm overweight, but I know from experience, man, I just need that stepping stone, that small event that'll happen, that'll catapult me into days of eating healthy. Like kind of like when you have a hangover, like, or I don't drink anymore, but like if you had a bad hangover and like you're like, oh, I'm never drinking again, and you go a few days without drinking, next thing you know, you've gone months without drinking.
Yeah.
You have that event that happens. And so what event happened that got you to get the ball rolling?
Well, I think the breakup definitely helped, right? And another thing that helped
Was that self-inflicted or did she break up with you?
I think I broke up with her, but she ended up she was unfaithful in the relationship.
That's rough.
And it is rough, but I'm not gonna like make excuses for her. I look at myself, I wouldn't want to be with myself in that state. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a good partner. When you're in a depressive state, you know, and to the state that I was in, I wouldn't want to be with myself. So not what she did was right. I don't think what she did was right, but I understand.
Well, let's make it clear. It was not right.
Yeah.
You're in a relationship, it ain't right.
Of course, it's not right. Yeah.
But you're analyzing. I don't think you're justifying.
No, I'm not.
You're analyzing and being honest in the fact that
exactly
that you know one of the things is that men we want to be, and I think that women respect is that we're on our A game. You know, we're working out, we got our money right. You know, everything in our life. You know, women want to feel like that the guy they're with has his stuff together. You know what I mean? So if you're not in that place, then it only stands to reason that the relationship's going to strain. And not to say that what she did was okay, but I certainly see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and like to your point, it's not okay. Whether it's man, female, it doesn't matter. It's not okay. To your point, I was analyzing my situation, and at the time, that's not what I thought. I'm telling you based on who I am as a person now. But so once that happened, I was like, okay, now I'm free of everything. I don't have that commitment. My only commitment is basically to myself. So I started just working out and slowly just choosing to be happy and productive with my life and things like that. So this happened early to 2022, and then in the spring, I was invited to my first mixed martial arts event live. So I've been a UFC fan pretty much since high school, but I didn't really watch it religiously until Conor McGregor came out, and he right before he won his first featherweight bout. So this was like in 2015. I started watching it religiously.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, man, I love UFC. Like this is dope.
Especially if you're watching Conor McGregor.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is like, primetime UFC, right?
I love that guy.
And then so now it's 2022. So I've been watching the sport for, at this point, almost 6 years now, or about 6 years now. So never been to a live show. Well, I had a friend who had a friend who had a friend who was actually fighting in the show that I went to.
Who was it?
You know what? I do not even know the guy's name because he ended up having to pull out of the fight. He ended up getting hurt.
Okay.
But I still went to the show. I already bought the ticket, so I went to the show. So this was Up Next Fighting 1, it was their first show. They're a new fight promotion. This was at the Burbank Marriott. I want to say it was in May of 2022. So I went to that show. I brought my camera. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to bring it in, but they didn't say anything, so I brought it in. I was standing in the back, and I was just taking pictures while I was enjoying the show. And I was like, man, this is an amazing show. The energy. I had the best time of my life.
Yeah.
Well, one of the fighters who was I don't know if he was the main event. He might have been the co-main event. His name is Albert Morales. He was in the UFC. He still currently fights. He trains out of Black House MMA. And he won his fight, jumped on the cage. I happened to be right nearby, took a photo. I sent the photo to my phone, edited it real quick, threw it up on social media, tagged him, and he reposted the photo. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, this guy reposted the photo.
Yeah.
Like, within minutes, I started getting followers and all these DMs about the photo. Like, man, this is so cool and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I had been doing music from 2010 until about 2020 at that point. 10 years.
Yeah.
And you know how many compliments or how much love I've gotten through music?
0.
A handful of times. I could probably count on one hand, like, the amount of times where I can be like, man, that
was dope.
That was dope.
Yeah.
One incident in the combat sports community.
Right place, right time.
And I was like, man, I want to be a part of this community.
That's sick. And that's amazing that you did it, that you got that. And you stuck with it.
Yeah.
And so what happens then? You get this newfound inspiration, this newfound excitement about something you're doing.
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Okay. Well, the first thing I do is, if I know that I want to get a part of this community, be a part of this community, well, I gotta find out how to do that, right?
Yeah, because that photo is only gonna last. Great, you're the guy who posted a great photo that one time, but how do you keep that alive? It's like, I'd be thinking, like, how do I keep this alive?
Right?
How do I do it again? And keep it going.
So with all things, you go to the people that are already doing it, right? So immediately after the event, so same day, right? The lights go on. It's already like midnight at this point. The crowd's leaving. I see all these photographers there that were around the cage that are obviously getting paid to shoot the event. Mm-hmm. So I go up to one of the photographers, or I go up to a couple, but one of them in particular, her name's Gina. She goes by Fighter Fight Media on Instagram. She was really kind with her time. And I asked her, I said, hey, like, I'm a photographer. This is my first event ever. How did you do this? Like, how'd you become a part of this? Is there any tips you can give me? She said, just go to the gyms. Go to the gyms. Tell them you'll shoot for free. Build your relationships with the gym owners and the fighters, and you'll kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Cool. So first thing I did, hit up the fighter, the one that posted.
Reposted.
And then I'm going through all his friends on Instagram and all his fight friends.
Follow.
Follow, DM.
Yeah.
And literally the next month, which was June, I got credentialed to my first amateur show, which was Spar Star MMA at the Commerce Casino. And I was like, yo, this is cool.
Yeah, dude. And that's exactly what I got it in my head to do. I mean, I'm in the gyms because I train, and I know a lot of people. That's why I've been able to get people in here. Luckily, I don't know how long I could do that, but I got people in here like that. And what I started doing was I just started DMing people because I have on my page I have a whole lot of jujitsu stuff of me doing stuff. So again, been getting followers and people responding to my DMs. They're looking at my stuff, so that's helped a little bit. But I think it's incredible and intuitive. Not intuitive. It's maybe fortuitive because you have to put one foot in front of the other, like to get outside of your shell and like make DM somebody and actually invite them. I'm sure you've invited people onto your show or whatever. Mm-hmm. You have a show, right?
Correct.
What's it called? Let people know what it's called.
So Five Fan Culture, which is the page, right?
Uh-huh.
We just call it the Five Fan Culture Podcast, and we could get into it a little later as the conversation progresses. But basically, I don't have a setup like this. I can, but my thing is I want to make the guests as comfortable as possible, and I try to do it in their house. So a lot of the fighters, I'll go to their gyms and do the podcast at their gym. Even if the class is going on, I'll pull off to the side and I'll just set up cameras and set up shop like that.
So with that kind of setup, does that mean is it normal for you to have like a 1 or 2 hour interview, or is it like something that goes really quick because of the nature of where you are and what you're doing?
Honestly, it just depends on the time. So like our first interview we did ever was with Jason Granado. He's a Muay Thai fighter in the IE, and he also coaches at the 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Balmount over there, the Muay Thai class.
Yeah.
So we pulled up to the Jiu-Jitsu gym about 2 hours early before they opened the doors, and we ended up just doing the podcast in the gym for about an hour and some change.
You guys bring a table with you or something, or
nah, just chairs, and I just had a couple cameras. We were all just sitting down on the chairs.
So the audio is coming from the cameras?
I have lavalier mics.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they just clip them onto their shirts or whatever.
Yeah. And most people are probably willing, like they're just like, yeah, for sure, come on in. As soon as they see like that you guys got legit equipment.
For sure. And then because we just started this year, so we're in 2024, right? My story starts in the combat sports space, basically in the middle of 2022. So from 2022 to the end of last year, I built these relationships and this credibility in the Southern California scene. So, yeah, my name is Issac Martinez, but I go by my middle name, Issac Lawrence. Okay. So on my social media, it's all Issac Lawrence. So if you say my name, most people know who I am, and I leveraged my brand to be able to get them on Fight Fan Culture. Talk
about that a little bit, if you will, when you say my brand. That's something that I'm starting to learn just as a new podcaster. We're barely starting out.
Sure.
I never considered that I myself, like me physically, or me on the camera, could be a brand, as opposed to just my Dre Bee Rambo show brand. There's like a distinction there, is there not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you gotta think about it. Like, I think back in the day, when I say back in the day, I'm talking about like before social media, like before the internet was really prevalent the way that it is, right? It was the companies that their brand was the most important. So like if I was at a radio show, I'm the host of K-Rock, or if I work
Big
for CBS.
Like Big Boy at Power 106.
Correct. But I'm glad you brought him up. Big Boy, and then you got people like I can't think of his name, the biggest radio host, Howard Stern. Howard Stern, right? They were ahead of their time. Why? Because Big Boy he's not at Power 106 anymore.
No, right.
He's at 92.3 The Real, or whatever it's called. And same thing with Howard Stern. I think he went from one station to another station. They built their brand, right?
They are the brand.
They are their brand, right. Exactly. So that's the distinction. So you want to be able to build the credibility of who you are as a personality, or however you want to call it, your brand, so that no matter where you go, they know that there's going to be a certain level of, whether it's quality, whether it's just a vibe or whatever, your brand has that. And so what I did throughout my career, so to speak, is I built that. So when I was in music, I was the hardest working guy at the studio. I was there first, and I would leave last. And so I built this credibility of like Isaac's gonna put in so much work, and I transferred that over to the fight game. And then what I did is I looked at the music industry and some of the things that the music industry was doing, and I tried to throw a little bit of that into the fight game.
Okay.
So, like for example, there was a bunch of photographers, and I'm not trying to take credit for anything because we all have different ideas and whatever, but nobody was really doing video. Like I started doing, I called them portrait videos when I was working with models before, and it was basically like a moving picture. So I would record the model like posing and like walking down, and do it in slow motion and stuff like that. So I took that and I started doing that with video in the combat sports space. So I was capturing all these moments of fighters and doing it in slow motion,
Slowing it down.
Gives
What is it? What do you think it gives it? I kind of have an idea, but what do you think it gives?
It gives it like a cinematic, like movie-esque vibe that,
Especially if you put like a good sound bite to it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks great.
So now, and like I said, I'm not the first one to do it. This was just my idea that I took here and I put it here. I started seeing a lot of people doing that, right? Now they're like, oh, okay, cool. Now people are doing that. Then I felt like these amateur shows, they didn't have like post-fight interviews. And I was looking at the UFC, and if the UFC is the creme de la creme, the NFL of MMA, I'm like, okay, what are they doing that I can do for these local shows? So I started doing that. I started working at a kickboxing promotion, and I started doing post-fight interviews, and I would post them on my YouTube channel, on their YouTube channel. Same thing with the MMA Spar Stars. I started doing that. Now you have post-fight interviews at like Up Next Fighting and other shows. Not saying that I started that, but I was doing things a little bit before other people were doing things in the space, and because of my initiative, a lot of people started creativity, initiative, all those things. A lot of the fighters and a lot of the promoters, a lot of the gyms, they started remembering my name.
Yeah, I would imagine so. They're gonna like what you're doing. Hey, man, I like the way I looked in that video, man.
Yeah.
All slowing down, walking out like this, but in slow motion. It looks cool. So I would imagine that they started reaching out to you, or when they see you, more than willing to put the welcoming doors open for you.
And dude, I was trying to do everything. I was literally, when I first started, I was like, I'm trying to make a big splash because I saw that the I call them content creators, like photographers, video people. The content creators, I felt like they could do so much more, but they just weren't doing it. And even
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to do it. But I do this whole thing by myself, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And like, there's days where I'm just like, man, there's so much. Like in your mind, you see it, it's there, but maybe you don't have the skill of building a team. Maybe you don't have the skill of trusting other people.
Yeah.
Like this is my baby. I built this whole thing, and like, what I'm gonna bring someone else in and share it with me, or editing. Don't know how to edit. Don't want to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's a lot.
It is a lot, man, and that's something that that's still a struggle with me, which is like understanding that I have quote unquote a team, and I call it more of a collective of individuals, and it's okay for me to delegate certain things, but it's tough because if my name's on it, anything that my name's on, Issac Lawrence, I expect a certain quality.
Yeah.
And so if there's not things that are to my standard, you're just like, and you kind of have to let it go because they're not you. Yeah. And you have to let them figure out how to get to your level. And so that's been kind of like where I'm at, like the growing pains of having a team and having to depend on those collective.
So pull it I would say just a little bit, yeah. Because I'm looking at the thing there, I could see that it's a little loud. Like, oftentimes I've said about things like sometimes you have to leave people behind kind of attitude, right? Where like if people just aren't getting off the couch, your friends, for example, and maybe they're still in the world smoking pot or whatever, and you're just like, dude, I'm trying to level up, and you're not leveling up. I would say, yeah, it's a good idea. Like leave those people, not leave them behind, don't love them anymore. But there's only so much you could do.
Yeah.
But is that the same attitude you have in this, being that you guys are, partnering it up? Are you trying to help them pick them up? Is that the strategy, or you're gonna? Well, I don't want to sound horrible, but like you're looking out for making sure you're protecting your own investment first, and then if you're able to help people level up, because you had mentioned that I'm just gonna let them figure it out. Like I'm not gonna get upset when they don't do what I envision, or what I think is that, or we're not operating at the same levels. But then do you leave the door open for other options, or do you, since you're not gonna help them get up, or do you help them get up? Like, do you understand my question? Like,
Yeah.
well, like how do you deal with that?
Well, I'll say it like this. So before the combat sports, going back to the music thing, I was in a collective, a team, and I wasn't the quote unquote leader. Even though I was the hardest worker, I was more of like, I don't know how to explain it, but I just wasn't the one in charge, so to speak. So it's hard when you're the hardest worker, but it's not your thing.
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
So it's like, why am I working harder than the guy whose stuff it is? So eventually I had to leave that. And to your point, talking about like letting friends go or things like that, unfortunately, those individuals are still in the same place. And, so I feel like I made the right decision at that time. So now I am the leader. I'm the one who created this along with everyone else, but I'm the leader. So I have to lead by example.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I'm doing is I'm working hard, that same work ethic that I've had my whole life. I'm putting it into this, leading by example. And when they're not, I have to understand that they're not me. So they're not going to work as hard as I'm going to work. But I have to set them up for success. So as we're growing together as a collective, I see what their strengths are and I see what their weaknesses are. And I'll try to help them in any way that I can. So, for example, if I know that I want to get something out at a certain time, I probably can't ask somebody who doesn't know how to edit very well to do it, to get it in the time. So I might have somebody who can hold the camera, you shoot it, but then I'm gonna edit it, or I'm gonna give it to somebody else who has that skill set. So I don't want to set you up for failure. I want you to learn how to edit and get better and better and better. But I'll give you tasks that maybe I don't need that tomorrow. Maybe I can wait until next week to get.
Well, that sounds smart, because then you don't. It's like you're giving that person a chance to be a part of what it is that you're building, and not just counting them off. Just basically writing them off. It seems like a very good strategy, because I think, people want to be a part of this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I have quite a few friends that, kind of put it out there that they want to help or they want to be involved in it some kind of way. And it's not that I'm not open to that, but I also, like, in my mind, I say to myself, it's not that I want people riding on my coattail. That's not the issue. It's just whether or not you're going to hold on. Mm-hmm. It's very quickly people forget or they get busy. Because you can't give the motivation to somebody. You can't give them this is more than just a goal for me. This is it's developing into something like a passion, and which are not easy to come by. I've gone through most of my life being passionate about very little. And something comes by in your life, and you're lucky enough to have something you're passionate about. Like, I'm sure you're passionate about what you're doing. Yeah, you hold on to that and you protect it for dear life. Mm-hmm. What kind of have you ever had those experiences where, like, experience of like doubt? You like maybe not so much now that you've kind of taken on a leadership role and that you've had some success. before, when you're first starting out, did you have those moments of doubt that, man, am I really going to be able to do this? Or when a problem happens, you start to question whether or not you're going to be able to overcome? And if so, how did you get yourself past that mentally? Like to push, to keep pushing forward even when you feel like, you know what, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah, man. Well, to answer your question, I have doubt every single day. Every single day, you know, it's called the imposter syndrome. That's the coin.
You call it the imposter syndrome?
The imposter syndrome.
Like you're pretending to be something you're not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what, like, if, you know, most people, when they talk about that, they're like, oh, you have imposter syndrome. Yeah, like, I go to that every single day, man. And well, the number one is I have faith. And if I don't have faith in myself, I have faith in God. That's number one, far and foremost. Like, everything that I've done in my life, when I look at it and I just try to, like, think about it, I'm like, man, God put me in those situations, because if I didn't learn this, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. So I have to have faith that as long as I keep going, even if there's sometimes I don't have faith in myself, I don't have faith in my team, I don't have faith in the world, like, I have faith that God will just lead me in the right direction, because he's done it so far. So that's number one.
How do you know when your faith, when you say God is leading you in the right direction, how do you know when you're actually in line with God's mission for you, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it? You know, sometimes I have doubters, you know, used to say people, you know, in your family who don't necessarily, they don't see the fruit of what I'm, because there's no money. I'm doing it straight out of, because I have this vision in my mind, right? And it's not producing any, if there is fruit, I'm not able to see it yet, right? What do you do with that? What do you do when people tend to doubt what it is that you're doing? Like, how do you get yourself past that?
Well, I think when I was younger, it was a lot harder. I think because in my early 20s, when I first started doing music, I did it for selfish reasons. I did it because I wanted the approval of the world, the approval of my friend, you know, all that stuff. But now as a 32-year-old man, like, I kind of got past all that. I don't care about anybody's approval. I care about whatever I do. I want to be the best at what I do, whatever it is, whether it's be a best husband, be the best friend, be the best father, like, be the best content creator. Like, as long as I know that I'm trying my best, I don't care what anybody else says. Because if I look at what they're saying, like, 9 times out of 10, they're not even doing anything that they want to do.
Right.
And I had this epiphany like 5-6 years ago, where, because I used to get really bothered when somebody would say something about me, whether it's like they think I suck or, you know, whatever it is, that they were just bad-mouthing me. And then this might sound really, really silly, but this is literally, I'll still do this if I'm really upset, is I think about what is really making me upset. When I break it down, it's air. And Andres, just humor me for a sec.
Okay.
So when somebody's saying something, they're like, man, you suck. Well, what happens is they got to get air, right? It goes into their diaphragm. It comes out of their mouth through vocal cords that creates sound, and then they move their lips, which creates the sound, and then we perceive it as words, and then it affects our mind. So if you really think about it, you're mad at air. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so when I broke it down in that silly way, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to let so-and-so, like, bother me. Like, I don't want them to have control over me, number one. And number two, like, I'm mad at air. Like, forget that. You know?
It's nothing. They only have meaning because, or have an impact on us because we're allowing it, I guess, is what you're saying.
100%.
And I get that people, I mean, I deal with haters. I haven't got people tell me any comments yet. I know they're coming.
Of course.
I got one thumb down. I was looking at my analytics and I was like, whoa. I looked at the video. I was like, I wonder what I must have said. And I was like, why do you care? Mm-hmm. Who gives a crap, man, what you said? It's like, obviously they're just mad. And it reminded me of that movie when he's like, James Franco or whatever his name is. He's like, they hate us because they ain't us, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, this is not important for me to worry about. And I guess what I was trying to ask earlier, and I kind of my brain went haywire, was like, how do you know that what you're doing is in line with God's purpose for you? I'm really interested in that because you've made it clear that your source of strength is God. I'm assuming that's Jesus.
Of course.
And you're at fights. They're brutal combat fights, right? And I always think about jiu-jitsu because God's a wrestler. When he's wrestling with Jacob at the end of Genesis, I like telling Pastor Ray and other people, hey, God's a wrestler, man. There's a reason why jiu-jitsu is so popular and why it's so much fun and why it does what it does. How do you know though when you're doing something, if you have an opinion about when do you know, how do you know if you're in line with God's purpose for you or if you're not in line when it comes to these ambitions that you're pursuing, where some people might say you're being selfish because you're not doing what you need to do, which is go get the 9 to 5, or you're chasing a pipe dream and all this kind of stuff. How does a young person who maybe has aspirations to do something that other people aren't doing, that is huge risks involved, like doing a podcast, for example, where I have no money, I have a family, I need money, but I'm doing this instead. I'm not saying that I don't work at all, but where I'm doing this. How do you know?
So the first thing I'm going to say is, I think it depends on what your intentions are, right? Like going back to the music thing, like I was doing it for myself. I knew that I was doing it for myself. I wasn't doing it for God, like whatsoever. So I think that God will make it really, really hard for you to be successful in things that are not aligned with the path that he desires for you, number one. Second thing is, I, being a man of faith, I pray. And I pray as often as I can. If it's not every day, it's as often as I can. God, please close the doors that need to be closed. So I purposely will tell him, if I'm not supposed to go down this road over here, do something so I don't go down that road. Like, shut it down. And, sometimes you have to go down certain roads because God wants you to learn a lesson. But nevertheless, overall, I was supposed to go down that road, number one. And for me, my intentions, so the reason why I do what I do, it's not because of the fight game and this and that. It's because I'm trying to do something that nobody in my family has ever done, which is do something big. I think a lot of us can relate that whether it's ourselves or our family members, people live in fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to break that for my family. Like, I love my parents to death, but they don't own a house. My grandfather, my mom's dad, doesn't own a house. My dad's side of the family doesn't own a house. They work 9 to 5 jobs. There's certain things that they've done, and now great people, don't have anything bad to say, but as far as how they live their life, it's fear. Isaac, go to school, get a 9 to 5, do this, do that. Is that God or is that fear? So if it's not God, then what is it?
Play it safe. It reminds me of the story when God gives the talents or the money to each person and gives like 10 coins to one, 5 to another, and 1 to another. And the one with 1 just buries it in the dirt, doesn't do anything with it, with the gifts that God gave him. I'm paraphrasing here, of course.
Yeah.
It ends up taking it away from him and giving it to the guy with all of it. Because I think you're right. I too live in a family where it's all go to college, go to college, go to college. And that may have been smart advice for the baby boomers, when they were going to college and companies were giving out pension plans that would take care of you after retirement for the rest of your life kind of stuff. But we don't have that anymore. And we're just living in a whole different thing. And, obviously college debt is through the roof. And, kids are coming out of college with 100 grand of debt and no job. And so it's like, you know, being a risk taker is kind of like the way to go. Owning a business is kind of the way to go. Thinking differently is the way to go. It's no longer play it safe, because it's going to be really tough to survive.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to survive out here playing it safe anymore. There just is no safe. We're in trying times. And so I agree with you, man. It's you decided to take a risk, to do something different, out of the ordinary. And maybe even more so because you're not even in like fight. You weren't even in the fight game yourself.
Yeah.
You know, where like me, I at least know, like I'm actually like, I don't mean this like disrespectful.
No,
I just mean like, you know, I've been, you know, training for years and reached a certain level. I know a lot of people, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm lucky enough to have all these connections, just small connections through that. Mm-hmm. But you've brought yourself up to a level without even training, as far as I know.
Yeah, I trained, but not. I've started in 2022, so it's only been 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've brought yourself to a level where fighters know you.
Yeah.
If they don't know me, they don't know who I am, but they know who you are, and that's inspiring, because it just goes to show that anybody, and not to say you're nobody, but anybody can do certain things to like just change the whole trajectory of their life, to do something totally different than they ever thought they could do. Like, hey, one day I'm like, I'm gonna pick up a camera and I'm gonna go film some MMA fights, and I'm gonna like make myself known in this business and gather a following, make decisions that are actually getting you from A to B. The journey of 1,000 miles. I love the journey of 1,000 miles. I mean, it's not in the Bible or anything, but it's like just taking those steps. Like, it's something to admire about people, and that's the kind of stuff I like. I like, you know, flipping through Instagram and looking at men and women's stories, like all their pictures and their photos, and see what they're doing. I interviewed somebody recently where they had photographs of them doing stand-up.
Okay.
And he doesn't do it anymore. But there was this time in his life where he was doing stand-up. And that's just like impressive to me.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for me to appreciate that type of stuff, because I went my whole life not doing anything. Just 25 years of drinking alcohol and drugs and just not doing anything, not impacting any single person's life or anything. And that's part of the reason why I do this show, because it's like, man, God could transform anyone and give them the tools that they need to change their stars, change the trajectory of what they're going. And it seems that as you've done that you did that.
Yeah, no, by God's grace, you're 100% right. And, you know, I'm glad you shared that. I admire your story. Every story, and going back to the fight game, that was part of the reason why I was so inspired to get into the fight game, was because of all the stories, man.
Yeah.
All the stories.
Right.
And every single person has a story. Going back to something that you said, I wanted to give you your flowers, because you said, you know, yeah, this podcast is not making, you know, any money, and I don't see the rewards yet. But the thing is like, you're right, you don't see them, but you don't know who listened to that podcast or that clip and got inspired and then went to the gym that day or did X, Y, and Z. And that's going back to the whole imposter syndrome. That's something that I do a lot more now that I didn't do before, that I advise you to do, is smell the roses and look at how far you've come. Like, I remember when you just posted your first clip, I think it was like maybe 2 months ago, right?
You do? Of what?
It was you just saying something along the lines like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I just know I'm going to do this thing. And then you started posting videos of you running and all this stuff. Right. And people like me who have seen it from the very beginning, like, we appreciate that. You know, I remember you had posted, man, I didn't go to my run this morning, so, but I have an hour break for lunch, so I'm just going to run during my hour break. I was like, damn, this dude can run his break, and I'm over here complaining about I'm not going to the gym today. You know, you know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying, but that's the thing. We are doing something different. We're trying to be different. We're trying to be an example. And that's why we're going to get so much pushback. We already do, and we'll continue to get pushback because if you're different, everybody wants you to stay in a box. It's fear and it's comfort. Of course, like, oh, Andres, yeah, he does this 9 to 5 and, you know, he'll do jujitsu as a hobby and, you know, yada, yada. But then when they see you doing the podcast, it's like subconsciously, this is what I think, it makes them have to be accountable for their actions.
Yeah, like, oh man, now I got to level up, and I don't want to level up. I'm comfortable with it, but I don't like this. I get that. Yeah, I totally do. And I'm pretty sure maybe even I felt like that, if I was going to be honest with myself. Maybe when I was not doing so well and, you know, just going through some hard times and you see somebody doing something great. And, you know, I never really ever thought that way. I've always tried to tell myself to be happy for other people. And I think I've genuinely been that type of way. But there is that small part of you where you're like, man, why do I suck?
Yeah.
Not that I'm not happy for that person. I've never been that way where I'm like, I hope that guy breaks a leg and doesn't, you know, I've never been like that. A hater.
Yeah.
I'd never want to be a hater. But I've seen people have success where I'm at my lowest and I'm like beating myself up. I'm happy for that person, but man, why do I suck? What's wrong with me? Like, am I ever gonna change? I'm 35 years old. I'm 40 years old. Am I ever gonna change? You know, I'm 45 now, and it's like I'm barely coming out of my shell. When I bought this thing, this podcast thing, I was actually doing what you're doing, doing videos about UFC. But I got unmotivated, one, because I was afraid of what people thought of me,
Sure.
of course. But two, Dana White doesn't let you use
The clips.
clips.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, like I would spend my time, you know, editing clips that I would find online, like YouTube videos, and then I would air mine, and I get like a warning from YouTube for. I was just, well, how am I gonna do this show? How am I gonna do it? And then, like, because I didn't have what you had, the creativity to maneuver around all that, get yourself it. Like, obviously, you got yourself into the credentials, and you know, you put yourself in the right place. You made decisions. You made good decisions that allowed you to get to where you are. I didn't do that, but it's okay because I'm grateful that I was able to get past that thing, that lie that comes into our brain that tells us that you're never going to be able to succeed. And it still comes into, the lies still come in, but I've learned to like ignore them. Like, no, it's not. And sometimes even answer them like, no, you're a liar. Whatever obstacles, because they will come, I will push through. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be times where I don't have. The other day, somebody canceled on me. I wasn't mad about it, but I was like, man, what am I going to do? And I was just going to sit in my bed and just say, well, I guess I got the day off.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there.
But I started talking to myself, you know, and I was like, you son of a bee, you better get your butt over there to that podcast, and you got that thing, you better put something out. And I did Invincible Man. I don't know if you saw that. I did Invincible Man, and I spelled it wrong. It was supposed to be Invisible Man, but I put Invincible Man. No one said it. One guy said something about it. Luckily, not in the comment section. But yeah. I don't know. No one noticed, thank God. But yeah, man, just overcoming the fear stuff. I really care about that for some reason. Just because like everybody else, I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And just the whole self-denial thing, and you know, not having any faith in myself or in God and stuff like that. So I part of this podcast, what I want to do, which is probably, I don't know if it's completely different from what you're doing, but my goal is not necessarily to be at the fights. I do need to do that to get people on my podcast.
Sure.
But what I really want to do is what we were talking about, getting those stories, those real life stories. And I think fighters are the best people to do that. Or even it doesn't have to be UFC. It could be anything, right? Or sport, any kind of sport. Because there's something about sports, and especially fighters, that they overcome so much to get in that ring.
Yep.
They have to drop just losing weight, for example, like the discipline that comes with that. Like I have to lose 20 pounds for a match that I have over the weekend. Chances of me losing those 20 pounds are pretty slim. But it just reminds me of just how tough that is. And that one little aspect of fighting alone, dropping weight, having discipline to control your mind control is amazing in itself. To be able to have that type of self-control. It's something to be admired. And I think, it's no wonder why women, for example, look up to and admire fighters because they overcome challenges. So, I mean, people overcome things like aside from that, they overcome things like grief. There's been fighters throughout in history where their mama dies,
Yep.
And it's right before the fight. But they still get in that ring and perform. They don't let the fans down or whatever it is. Or they're going through a divorce, just loss of a child, maybe, something. But there's always or they can't pay their bills, sleeping in and out of cars. Plenty of boxers and fighters, MMA fighters who have slept in their car.
Yep.
Because they don't got the money, nowhere to live. They don't have anybody to support them. It's like they're lost. And all they have is this fight. The fight in them, and they find a way to get themselves to a level that they're competing at the highest levels, and then they reap all these rewards.
Yeah,
right, and rightfully so. They earned it, and I want to get those stories. That's my goal.
Yeah,
to get those stories, not just because it'll sell views, but because I'm genuinely interested in it.
Yeah,
because it's something I want for me.
And you're not the only one who wants that either. There's other people that are like you, whether it's your age group or whether it's, just people that do the things that you do that want to hear those stories. And it's funny you bring that up because how I got into everything and why I got so passionate about the combat sports space was I started calling myself a storyteller. So when I was doing these interviews or these mini documentary things that I was doing, it was with that in mind. Like, I want to tell their stories. And nobody right now at the time is doing it in a very cinematic, like, cool way. And I want to make these guys look like superheroes because I truly believe that they're modern day gladiators.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you just fight in an amateur show or you're, the UFC lightweight champion. Every single person who's ever got into a cage, a ring, a mat has my respect because this, I know this, we're behind the scenes, but not everybody else knows this. Like 99.9% of all these fighters, even people in the UFC, have 9-to-5 jobs.
Yeah.
And they have to be on a strict diet and they're training multiple times a day. And then they got a wife or a relationship and kids and this and that. And they're only making $10,000 to show and $10,000 to win and all this crazy
and
stuff.
They probably have people in their ears like the wife saying, you got to stop doing this. You got to get a regular 9-to-5 job. We're struggling. We're this, we're that. But they hold on to it.
Yeah.
And they persevere.
Exactly.
Perseverance, man.
And that is what really got me into this was because of those stories. And that's what I want to do, just like you. My way might look a little different, but that's the main thing is tell these stories of these individuals because they can inspire and they're just regular people. We're all just regular people. It's just they made a decision. We made a decision. We want to do something different than what we were showed or taught or whatever. And that's it. You just make that decision and then you just commit to it. And it's just every day you get to decide, do I want to lay in my bed or because somebody canceled for the show, or am I going to get up and still do the damn thing? Just I have to be do it in a little different way. So I respect fighters because they do every single day. They're just like sacrificing.
And what people don't realize too is that there's so many fighters that we don't see that fell off. Mm-hmm. The champions are the champions for a reason because they were able to maintain discipline. They were able to persevere over adversity. That's why we love these stories because they're the ones who did what we wish we could do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm 45. I don't know if I could. Obviously, I never did. I was talking to another fighter the other day where it's like all the missed opportunities. Doesn't matter if you're a great athlete. Doesn't matter if you had natural talent. Those things don't matter. I mean, they matter, but to get to a certain level, it's all about those punchline words: discipline, perseverance, dedication, prioritizing, all that stuff. That's the stuff, and so and overcoming.
Yeah.
Because there's so much. There's just so much. What's like maybe have you gotten some amazing stories out of fighters? Like what's some of the amazing stories that you've gotten?
Man, there's so many. You talk about how there was people that lived in cars and were homeless and things like that. I've interviewed a couple fighters that they were talking about how they were in jail and they saw a fight while they were in jail, and then and there they decided, like, this is what I'm gonna do because I need to do something different with my life. Obviously, I'm in jail and it's not working out, so let me try something new. And they were homeless and they were doing, living at the gyms, basically. Another fighter, he was addicted to fentanyl for a while, and he decided that he knew where that path was going to lead. And same thing, he decided, I'm not going to do that. I need to get clean and sober. I'm just going to dedicate my life to this. This is the only thing that's been stable in my life, so I'm just going to continue to pour into that. So, I mean, there's so many stories, man. Like, it's hard to choose one specifically, but I respect everybody. And there's even stories that it's not as crazy, but you have these young kids now where they're 20, 21 years old, and it's the Conor McGregor effect, or they saw a fighter 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and that inspired them to want to become a fighter. So they started training at a really young age, and you're just like, whoa, like, back when I was in high school, I didn't want to be a fighter, like, but now it's prevalent, like it's mainstream now.
Yeah.
So,
who are some of your main influences, like maybe people on YouTube or whatever, that motivate you to like keep going, be the best you could be, or like, there's a lot of talk these days about how they're just not producing manly men anymore, or like go-getters and stuff. There may be some truth in that. I think there is a bit of truth in that. Who do you listen to? Like, who do you, when you, if you do at all, listen to people, like, I don't know, whoever, who is it that you get a lot of inspiration from?
Well, it's different now, but the person that truly inspired me when I was in high school was a guy named Ryan Leslie. Ryan Leslie at the time, he was a singer/rapper. And the reason why I gravitated towards him was because back in 2009, when YouTube was like really very young, right? Nobody was really doing podcasts like that. Nobody was really doing like how-to videos. It was kind of like just really like skits, comedy, things like that. Well, in 2009, Ryan Leslie was showing you how he made songs from scratch. He would like play the piano and then like drums and like the trumpet and all this. And it'd be like 5 to 10 minute videos of just from beginning to end of how he created a song.
Like putting the beat together.
Bringing recording.
In some instrumental and then.
Everything.
Wow.
And I was like, who is this guy? Like, what the heck? He's like, you know how Kanye West like thinks he's like the god of music?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I view Ryan Leslie as like the true Kanye West. Like, that's how impactful he was in my life at that time. Well, I started researching this guy and just like started listening to his mindset. And that is kind of what inspired me to try to be a little bit different in my early age. And there was one thing that I had watched on YouTube. At this point, it's 2013 at this point. So 4 years had passed by. I was doing music, things like that. And because I wasn't really like getting anywhere, and I wasn't really sure like if I should continue. So I watched this video on YouTube, and you can Google it. And he said, all you need is 1,000 true fans to live a sustainable lifestyle as an artist. So it's a 50-minute video, but the gist of it, the main talking point is if 1,000 people invest $100 into you over a course of a year. So he broke it down for an artist. Let's say you're a rapper or a musician, whatever. They pay $20 for your album, maybe $20 for a t-shirt. Maybe they see you at a show for $40. So over the course of a year, it's $100 that person invested into you, into your art. Well, if you get 1,000 people to do that, that's $100,000.
$100,000, yeah.
So then that sparked a light bulb, like a light bulb went off in my head when I heard that. I was like, well, I live in Los Angeles. There's 3 million people in Los Angeles alone? I live in the United States. 350 million in the United States. There's 8 billion people in the world, and I just need 1,000 people to give me $100.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Dude, a light bulb just went off in my head right now just from hearing that.
So since then, so 11 years ago, I've always had that mentality, that idea of the 1,000 fans. Now, that's looked different throughout my life. It was music at one point, then it was photography. Now it's content creation. But that always stuck with me. So to answer your question, who inspired me? Ryan and Leslie inspired me in a lot of ways. Now who inspires me now? Man, I take inspiration just about everywhere. I'll go on YouTube, on TikTok, and anything that I consider is really dope, I'll just save it and be like, man, I want to figure out how can I do something like that, but in my space.
Right.
And it could be a video, somebody edited a video of their dog or something, but I really, really enjoyed that video. And then I look at it and I'll try to dissect it. Why did I enjoy that video so much?
What is it about it? Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's more, I think I look at things that get my attention and I try to dissect why did it get my attention, and then I try to emulate that formula in my own way.
Yeah, I was doing that today, a matter of fact, with thumbnails. Because you'll notice in my videos, there's no thumbnail.
Yeah.
It's just a picture of me going whatever the computer, something like that. And I was thinking how can I, reach more people? I was just listening to this girl talk. I don't remember what her name was. I would give her a shout out. But I was thinking, man, I need to put more effort into, how I put these videos together. And it's something as simple as a thumbnail and maybe better caption, better words, like the titles, something as small as that, something. I rarely think about this, but sometimes just a little tweak of something, can change, make a big difference. It could just change the trajectory.
Well, think about it like this, and I'm gonna say it like this because I know you'll understand. When you're doing a technique in jiu-jitsu, sometimes you just need a little tweak. Maybe shift your weight a little here, or maybe the angle's a little off, but just a little tweak is all the difference. And that's pretty much anything. Content creation as well. You just the culmination of those little tweaks is what ends up having a big result.
That's absolutely true. And something as simple as just adjusting your hip can give you the position that you need to lock up a triangle, for example. Yeah, you said earlier that you trained for your last couple of years of what?
So I train Muay Thai.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I just so this past weekend, yesterday was my birthday. The day before, I'm getting married in September. So we combined my bachelor party and my birthday together. And the only reason we did that is because my sister, who are my best men, I have two sisters, and man, they're my ride or dies. They're my homies. So I asked them to be my best men, so they're my best women. One of them's moving next month out of state. So I said, you know what? I know the wedding's in September, but I want to do it now, the bachelor party.
Yeah.
So we ended up sparring. Me and all the guys, my sisters included, we got together. The owner of Valdez Muay Thai.
George Valdez?
Correct. George Valdez.
Is he still right there on Washington?
Correct. That's where we're at.
And Whittier, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So shout out to George, because he closed down his class and said, hey man, here's the gym. However long you wanna do it, go ahead. Cool. Yeah. Super cool guy. Really love George.
I know him very well. He's a real cool dude.
Yeah. And so it was my first time sparring again. because on December I ended up getting knee surgery. I had a torn meniscus, so I had stopped training since I want to say July, August. So I haven't been training Muay Thai, but I slowly started lifting weights again and working out ever since my surgery, recovering. Mm-hmm. So Saturday, man, it was my first time, and boy, I was gassed.
Yeah, people, jiu-jitsu guys don't realize just how because when you do jiu-jitsu, wrestling and stuff, it's its own workout.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, but it's a different workout than standing up fighting, And a lot of jiu-jitsu guys neglect their stand-up stuff or their striking. And I remember one time I was, I had been doing jiu-jitsu for years and consider myself to be in top-notch shape. And then I went to a boxing class with George, one of the guys one of the instructors over at our gym. And man, I was exhausted. My arms were like limp noodles after that class. I didn't realize just how different of a workout it is, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough workout. Yeah.
I mean, jiu-jitsu ain't no game either, man. Like that's tough too. That's tough.
That's for sure. You do it just for fun, or is it like something you see yourself actually one day? Because you're young, and that's the only reason why I'm asking. Yeah. But you see yourself actually getting in the ring and trying it out, like a smoker.
Yes, sir. That's the goal. That's the goal. And it's not because I'm trying to be a fighter. That's not why.
Yeah, but experience of it, maybe.
100%. That's what it is. Honestly, when I started training in November of 2022, so it's going to be 2 years in November, with the exception of that break that I took. When I first started, it was literally with the mentality, I want to know how a fighter prepares for a fight. It's gonna help me tell stories better, having that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
now, are you talking MMA or kickboxing?
Well, right now, I'll probably do a PKB, so point karate, kickboxing, just to start. My goal is December. I want to do it this December, and then at some point, whether it's next year or the following year, I do want to do a mixed martial arts fight.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. But I gotta do some ground, dude. I gotta train.
I can certainly help you with that.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do if you end up kicking the guy's butt? You're gonna be like, shoot, I'm gonna take this a little more serious.
I mean, I'm 32, so I'm young, but I'm not so young.
You're young. I mean, because even I'm 45, I still feel like, Andres, if you just ate right and just trained every day and just told your wife, I'm going to practice. It's just like, I think I could probably do a smoker or like a one with headgear.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you should do it. Honestly,
I mean, I do great at jiu-jitsu. I mean, I keep up with the youngsters, and I mean, I'm a brown belt, so I usually don't have too much trouble. And not to brag, but I mean, I do pretty good.
Hey, you put in the time, man.
I put in the time and the work, and do a little bit of natural talent in there. The problem is just, aside from my age, just the inclination. When I'm 45 years old, I feel like, man, maybe that's a little too much at this age. If I was 30, I think I probably would, but not at 45. Although it's been done before.
Sure.
There are dudes. I don't remember the guy's name. It's not even that long ago, but like 46, just recently did an MMA fight.
Well, there's a guy, I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Civitz. And he fought an MMA fight for Sparstar MMA.
Is that right?
At the Commerce Casino. I gotta find him, and I'll shoot you his stuff. Maybe that'll inspire you to get in there.
Maybe,
Maybe you can fight him. Who knows?
But the funny thing is, though, is that there's a lot of MMA fighters. Like at my gym, other gyms that I've gone to, and I hope they don't see this, but like on the mats, I'll destroy them.
Yeah.
But then I put on some gloves, especially with a couple of guys that we have over there, and they're smaller dudes. And like on the mats, I have it on them, no doubt about it. But we put on the gloves and start boxing. Man, I'm getting tagged left and right. I'm like, oh my god, this dude, if he wanted to in real life, he would kick the crap out of me. It's just like, yeah, you could beat him on the mats, but no, man, in a real fight, this you better hope you get a hold of him quick, because if you don't, he's gonna knock you the heck out. And I'm humble enough to admit that, that there's guys at my gym where, just because I can handle them on the mats, no, in real life they'll pulverize me,
And that's what makes fighting so cool and so unique and amazing, is the fact that MMA specifically, you have to be at least sufficient in everything. Like you cannot be a striker and not have any type of ground. You can't be a ground guy and not have any type of striking if you want to be successful.
There's still people who do that. That I remember seeing like, oh, this guy doesn't have any ground game at all, but he's in there in the UFC or whatever. Just I feel like inevitably they always start doing their ground game.
You have to.
Once they realize, all right, better.
I mean, look at Adesanya. You know, Adesanya, he was a kickboxer, and he had a couple fights where he would get close to being taken down, and he worked really, really hard. Now, is he going to be submitting anybody? No, he's a kickboxer, but he worked hard enough to where he's going to stop the takedown, so he can do what he's good at.
Yeah, he knows how to sprawl. He'll be okay.
Yeah,
and he does really good. What's next for you? What's going on? What are you excited about? Do you have anything that you're working on that you can share with us?
Yeah, man, there's so much going on. There's always stuff going on, right? I think the first thing is, like I shared, getting married in September.
Yeah, congratulations,
appreciate
man.
it.
And when you said in September?
Correct.
Where are you guys getting married in? Is it like a destination? Or?
No. So we're getting married in Marietta. We just finished our marriage core. Yesterday was our last marriage core at our church. And we learned so much of how to just communicate and what it means to be married biblically, right? And we're getting married in Marietta. So she has an uncle who has a house like on an acre of land. In the front part of the house, we're going to do the wedding and then the ceremony. And then in the back, we're going to do the reception. I have a big family, bro.
Yeah.
And she has a big family, too. So we're expecting anywhere from like 200 to 250 people.
Holy smoke.
There.
Any fighters going to your thing?
You know, if money wasn't an option, we probably would have 500 people. And I would invite damn near all of Southern California, you know? Because, man, there's so many fighters that I've developed close relationships with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wish, but unfortunately, no, there's not.
That's great, man. So, you guys plan on having? You guys have kids already?
Do not. I think we're focusing on the marriage, and then next year, our plan is to start preparing for a family.
All right.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have many kids.
Yeah. Well, I just want to.
You just want to?
Yeah.
Make sure they grow up close in age.
Yeah. No. I mean, we're around the same age. So I'm 32. She's 33. So, you know, we're trying to. Once we start, we're not going to stop.
Yeah,
Hang them out.
I think that's a great idea. I hear from people all the time tell me, oh, we're going to spread them out a little bit. And I'm like, that's a bad idea. If you have them close in age, they have each other.
Yeah.
When you spread them out too far, it's like they don't know each other, you know. And I always feel sad when I see kids, they're so spread out. Mm-hmm. And then I feel bad for the dad because he always ends up having to be the playmate. And it's hard, you know, when you're trying to work or do other things and your kid's tugging on you because they need someone to play with. And, you know, it breaks my heart. That's how it was for me, you know, with my little one. She's so spread. My son's 21 in the Navy, and my little girl's only 9. So they don't know each other they know each other, but they don't know each other that well. And it's like, you know, and I end up having to be the playmate.
Yeah.
And, you know, it could take up a lot of your time.
No, and to your point, I agree with you. Like, and I was blessed where my parents, you know, they boom, boom, boom. So it was me. I'm 32. My sister turns 30 next week. And then the youngest one, she's 28. So we're all really close. And that's why they're my best men, because we have that relationship. It was cultivated at a very young age.
Okay. How's your dad? Did you tell your dad you were coming on the show?
I didn't, but as soon as this episode comes
I thought
out,
you'd be the first person.
No. See, the thing is I love my dad, man. I love
your dad's
guy.
great, man. I like him a lot.
He's a great guy. You know, he's come a long way, man. Laker Larry. Shout out Laker Larry.
Yeah, shout out Laker Larry.
He's come a long way, man. And, you know, I'm proud of that guy. You know, there was a lot of growing that both of us had to do. And now we have a great relationship. It wasn't always that.
Was it not?
No, man. It was not that way growing up.
What was it?
So basically, my dad grew up without a dad, right? So his mom, my grandma, had him at 17 years old. And my dad would tell me stories about how his father wasn't there and that how my grandma would drop him off at the park, and that his dad was supposed to come and hang out with him for a few hours. He would never show up. My grandma would pick him up, and my dad would lie to my grandma and say, "Oh yeah, my dad came. You know, we did this and that."
Wow.
So she didn't know what was going on. So he kind of from a young age like had to grow up really fast and just be the man of the house. He's the oldest. He has 3 siblings. So when he had me, he was 25 when he had me. He was born in the 60s and grew up in the 80s. So homie was over here, living life.
Right.
So when he had me, he decided that he wanted to be sober. So he stopped abusing substances and
Right.
alcohol and things like that.
Praise
So
God, man.
praise God. Got to respect him for that. And that was because his life, he saw a lot of that in his life. He grew up with alcoholism and drug abuse in his family life, and he didn't want to bring that into his, with his kids.
Yeah.
So growing up, my dad basically was like the opposite of what he had. So he was a drill sergeant type of dad, where I would go to school and I would have progress reports from him that I had to give to my teachers. I would get drug tested because at the time he was working as a drug and alcohol counselor for kids on probation. And so he had all these resources, and he was like, well, why not use these resources on my kids? So that's what he did.
Yeah.
So growing up,
did he have any reason to think you were on substances, or he's just like preventative measure?
it was preventative measure. He never
That's
played
hardcore, man.
Yeah. He never played sports growing up, so as soon as I was able to walk, basically, there was a ball in my hand. 3.5 years old, I'm playing soccer. And from then all the way until high school, like, I played sports. It was his way of like not letting us be out in the streets, doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, drug tests and progress reports and things like that. So I didn't understand. Now as a man preparing to become a husband and eventually having kids of my own, like, I understand what he was doing. At the time, I don't know what he's doing. All I know is like all my friends are not getting drug tested and getting spanked and this and that. And
all we understand is like my mom or dad's too harsh on me.
Right.
They don't. Maybe even like, oh, my dad doesn't like me, or my mom's, we don't see it.
Of course.
How could we? I mean, we're kids.
Yeah. So there was a lot of like me trying to get my father's approval in a lot of ways. So the reason why I didn't tell my dad about today, it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't do that anymore. I don't seek his approval anymore the way that I used to. But after I do something that I know he'll like, I'll like shoot it to him like, hey man, check this out.
Yeah.
Because back in the day when I first started doing music, man, my dad was, you want to talk about hater? My dad was my number one hater, man. I would work on all these songs and stuff thinking like, man, I'm the next Chris Brown, or I'm the next Usher, whatever. And I would send it to my dad and he'd be like, man, that song was horrible, man. I hope you don't put this out. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
But he's just a honest guy, and I love him to death. So he softened up over the years. Maybe it's the age thing. His testosterone probably went down a little bit.
Yeah,
and
parents tend to lighten up as they get older.
And now he always makes this joke. He goes, "Man, you guys had it rough growing up. Like I can admit that, to a degree. I was hard on you, but my grandkids, man, I'm gonna spoil them." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's funny. So I guess then him being that way, strict with you like that, obviously alienated you from him. Is that what happened?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Our relationship was strained. I physically have gotten into altercations with my dad.
No kidding? Wow.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where I pulled a knife out of my dad.
Like where you felt like you had to protect yourself, or
correct.
Okay.
We were in the kitchen, and you have like the knives behind you, like all that stuff, and he was just going in on me, and we've already had our little ticks of pushing matches and different things, and I was like, I think I was maybe 13 at the time, and I'm like,
oh wow,
I'm not trying to to have this type of environment. Like I don't want this energy. So pulled out a knife and I was kind of like pointed it at him, And it was just a way of trying to leave the situation. I ran out of the house. I'm crying. You know, I don't even remember what we were getting into the argument about, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the toxicity of our relationship growing up. And you know, my dad, he probably was dealing with his own things. You know, there was probably things behind the scenes, whether it would be
Well, he's
with
still
my
a young.
mom.
He's still a young. You're 13. He's probably still a young dude. 40,
Yeah, so he's probably around 40 years old at that
maybe
time.
45 at the old. Well, maybe about 40. Probably the oldest if you're 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still a young man himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and once again, now I understand he didn't know how to be a dad. He didn't have that example. So he was just doing whatever he thought was the right thing. And to give his credit, like, he did the best he could with the resources that he had, with the knowledge that he had.
Yeah. You know, we got to give dads a break. You know, no parent is perfect. We always screw our kids up. You're guaranteed. They should put it, if they had a manual, it would say, you know, don't worry, everybody screws up their kids. It's just to the matter of degree. You know, my dad, he was a great provider. He's a good person, you know, good guy. But just the kind of dad, he just didn't put his career first and didn't really take much interest in his kids. I don't even think he liked us, to be honest with you. And it just always was that way, you know. But I've always, you know, maintained the mentality that, you know what, especially after I saw this movie with, I forgot what movie it was. I think it's called I Love You, Man, with Steven Seagal.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Not Steven Seagal, Jason Seagal. Where there's this scene where he's talking to the priest and the guy's getting married. Oh, That's My Dad. It's That My Dad with Adam Sandler. Where the kids talk, Adam Sandler's the deadbeat dad, but he's there in the church. And he's basically saying, yeah, my dad's a piece of shit, this and that, whatever. And then the priest guy, you know, the character is like, oh, he had like a heavy Irish accent. And he's like, oh, did your daddy molest you? And he's like, well, no. He's like, oh, he used to beat you. He used to do this. He's like, no, then why are you bad mouthing your father, right? Mm-hmm. And ever since, and then not like I went around bad mouthing my dad, but when I heard that in that movie, it made me think, yeah, that's an interesting perspective. You know, like my dad was a good provider. Like he wasn't a bad dude. He didn't hurt me in any kind of meaning, like intentionally or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a relationship with the guy. Like, yeah, we don't have this. You know, there's a lot of things that I wish he would have done, like take an interest in me or, you know, coached one of my baseball teams, you know, all that stuff that young dads do these days. But there's no value in bad-mouthing him. And there's no value in you know, putting down dads in general. And a lot of times it's not always the men that do it, mostly the women. But, you know, being a parent is difficult.
Yeah.
And it's not something that they don't give you a rule book for that. We don't, in school, they don't teach you how to be a parent. It's something it's like when you throw a kid in the deep end of a pool, just figure it out, sink or swim.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we sink. And so, you know, you're getting married soon. One day you're going to be a dad. I have no doubt in my mind that, you know, you've thought about a lot of this stuff and you're going to easily figure out, you know, how to be a good dad.
Hey, man, I'm still scared, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Scared, man. I screwed up about 3/4 of my kids. I got 4, and I'm lucky 2 of them. Well, they're all good kids, you know what I mean? Actually, I screwed up my relationships with them. You know, I got 2 older kids that, you know, I have to go out of my way, you know, as often as I can to call them and reach out. And then, of course, my younger 2, my 20-year-old and my 9-year-old, they adore me. But the older ones are like, where were you when I was younger? Where were you? You know, those are the type of regrets that I have to live with.
Yeah.
You know? And so I know there's a lot of men out there that probably have similar situations where they drop the ball. You know, I spent the latter 20 years of my life, you know, just trying to amend those relationships. And, you know, that the reality is that what men need to understand is that you better figure it out while they're young, because there does come a time when it doesn't matter how much you reach out when you're older. Yeah, they may forgive you and they may sit down to have dinner with you and they may show up to a birthday or 2, but you'll never get it back. it's gone. Once it's gone, it's gone, and it doesn't matter how hard you try, it's just not there.
Yeah.
So you're thank the Lord, you're doing it right. You're gonna get married. You're gonna start a family. You're gonna have your little kids from day one, and you're gonna, you know, pour in all your wisdom and value into these little kids, because that's what they are. They're little sponges, and they emulate you.
Yeah.
One way or another. Or with some people, they do everything they can to not be like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they don't think much of you. You know what I mean? But it goes by. I was just telling someone else, and it goes by in a blink.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta cherish every moment. Just one day it's gone. Kids, they grow up so fast.
Yeah, man. I feel like life just gets faster and faster, man.
It does. It's like there was this experiment that I saw years ago. I don't know. I probably saw it on YouTube, but it was years ago, where they were trying to prove how the planets move within our solar system, and you know they basically had a circle container and had a hole in the middle, and you know they roll a bunch of not bowling balls, but pool table balls.
Okay.
And they all kind of rotate around, and eventually they end up they start going faster and end up in the hole. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what life is like. It's like starts off real slow as you're a kid. I mean, the concept of time is always the same. 24 hours is 24 hours.
Yeah.
But you know, as you get older, we lose it so much. It feels like we lose it so much faster. It's like I'm 45, man. I'm more than halfway through my life. You know, God willing, I'll live to be 100. But what are the chances of that? So I know, man, life is short, and that's part of the reason why I took this risk. I mean, I put a lot on the line to do this. You know, pissing off my wife, pissing everybody off, all that, because life is short, and you only get so much so much time to make an impact on the world. I was watching a video today where the guy was talking about how, I don't know if this is true or not, we could debate it if you want, but he's basically saying God's going to ask you 2 questions. And one of those questions was, what's your relationship with my son? What's your relationship with Jesus?
Yeah.
Did you have one? Did you? And then the other one is, what'd you do with all the gifts I gave you? Did you reach the people that I wanted you to reach? Did you take, the life I gave you and fulfilled the purposes I had for you? And that is like a scary thought for me, that I could potentially go through my whole life and get to God, and he's just like, man, go sit in the corner. Just sit over there. You barely scraped. You barely got in. But I'm very disappointed. Like, I don't think that's the last thing I want for myself,
Yeah.
Because I really think that could happen. We're all going to bend the knee one day. And we're all, whether you do it here on earth or not, we're all going to bend the knee. And we're all going to take an accounting. Just going to be an accounting, And the Bible says he's going to, paraphrasing, of course, but that he's going to reward us by what we did on this earth. I think that's just part of it. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, though. I want to touch on that because I was watching something recently. I don't remember who said it, but basically going back to like haters and like when the world talks about what you do, and I was talking to this with my fiance recently. I tried my absolute hardest to be way more scared, to your point, of like what God thinks of me than what the world thinks of me. So like, to kind of recap some of the topics that we covered today, you talked about silencing the haters, or like, when that talk comes in, and then, how do you stay motivated, and all these different things. Obviously I'm a Christian man, so my faith is in God, and that's what helps me get through a lot of this. And it's also, I'm scared, right? Like, I'm scared for multiple reasons. Well, I'm gonna be scared. I'm gonna be scared of what's gonna be the biggest thing that's gonna impact my life. Well, that's God. So if I'm gonna be scared, might as well get that fear and utilize it in an intentional way. So forget the world. Like, I don't care what they say. I'm more scared of what God says about me. What does he think I'm doing, like you said, with my gifts and things like that. So I try my best to kind of have that mindset. But, I'm human. So there are times where I look around and I'm like, oh man, like, so and so thinks this of me, and now I want to like impress them or whatever. But I try not to. I try to impress my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ more than anybody else.
Amen. I think that's a good place to leave it, man. Jesus Christ, Isaac, thank you so much for coming on my show, man. I'm so grateful that you came on. You accepted my invitation, and I hope that you'll come on again.
Yeah, man.
Sometime in the near future, we hear more about what you're doing.
Yes, sir. I got to get you on Fight Fan Culture.
I would love that, dude.
And,
that would be my first.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool, man. And then maybe we can get you rolling with some of the guys. Some of them actually train. So
is that right?
Yeah. So
cool, man.
like they train jiu-jitsu and stuff, so we can get you rolling.
Dude,
and
I
stuff
love
like
that, man. I'm trying to get some churches to put some jiu-jitsu. That's something we can talk about next time.
Yeah.
But I would love to roll with those guys.
All right, Andres. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you again, Isaac. I really appreciate you.